Okay, we have our attendees coming in here. We'll just give it a second here to let everybody in. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. Okay, I'll get us started here as folks are coming in. My name's Benjamin Neely. I'm the Executive Director of the Berks History Center. I'd like to welcome everybody to our virtual theater here tonight. And we're hopeful that we'll have a good show here. We know that we can count on Dave Kline, who's with us tonight. Dave's not going to be the problem. Problem might be our internet strength and bandwidth. So I expect tonight we will have some periods of time where the video maybe gets glitchy or freezes. It might even happen while I'm talking and doing my introduction here. I hope you'll stick with us here. We've done all we can ahead of the program, and we're sort of at the mercy of the ebb and flow of the internet here. There isn't any dials or knobs that we can turn to change that, unfortunately. I'll be here having the same audience experience as you. If it gets real bad, I'll be able to send a message to the folks there at the Berks History Center, so they're aware of it. But for the most part, we'll just have to kind of bear through it, and hopefully, like I said, it won't happen too often for us. We're really excited to do this. This is our first third Thursday program, sort of a companion series to our Saturday program. Here as we continue to try to put together a slate of events that we can host throughout this period of pandemic, and continue to be with you as best we can, and continue to bring you great shows and programs. So I'm going to keep it short for introductions tonight. I just wanted to say here that we have a second Saturday program is Saturday, February 13th. It's at 10 o'clock. And our program is going to be the Civil War Soldiers Orphan Schools of Pennsylvania. And I hope we'll see you for that. Go to our website, berkshistory.org, find the event section, and you can get the link to join that program. And then our next Thursday program in February will be the 18th at 7 p.m. And the title of that program is The Same Principles Lives in Us. People of African Descent in the American Revolution. And so we hope we'll see you for that series, as well as we continue to increase our amount of virtual programming here through the spring, and see how folks enjoy it. We're not charging for any of these programs. We do have a link in the chat to donate if you're so inclined. It's there. We'd certainly appreciate it. COVID has done a real number on our ability to earn through our programs, and we appreciate any kind of support you're able to offer. It means a lot to us, but just being here tonight also means a lot to us. So thank you very much for joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn the show over. One last note: change your you want to change your view up in the right corner of your screen. View, change that to speaker's view. That way, you're going to see Dave Kline real big, and I'm going to turn off my camera and mic, and I'll disappear, and you're just going to see the main man here. Dave Kline is a member of our Berks Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and a musician who's been real kind to the Berks History Center. And Dave, take it away. You can imagine uproarious applause from those at home here that have joined us this evening.
All right, thank you, Ben, and thank you, Vicki, for being in here tonight and helping us to set this up here at the Berks History Center. It's a wonderful place. Of course, I, like you who are watching this show, am very interested in history, and it's a wonderful situation that we have a repository for our local history right here at the Berks History Center, beautiful Center Avenue, Reading, Pennsylvania. As I look forward toward the camera, I see an old dower's chest, a hope chest, if you will, from 1798. That's more than 200 years old. So with that in mind, and knowing that we have the door behind me right here, I'm calling this the Door Gallery, or the Door. And I hope you enjoy my concert tonight. We're going to take you through some of the folk music, Americana, some of the roots music of America, and discuss where it came from, and do our very best to fit that in, or most of it in, within an hour. And one of the first things that comes to mind is you can't always fall back on what you learned as a young person in school as being the real truth of history in America, because the real truth of the history of America is not often reflected in some of the curriculum. For example, when we hear about folk music, we often see people begin their programs with, hey, the folk music from the Appalachian Mountains and the Irish settlers, and then a little bit later on from the African Americans in the Mississippi Delta and stuff. But before that, there was an entire nation of indigenous people here in the United States, an entire nation composed of many nations, tribes, if you will, of indigenous people. And during my research and studies, I had the pleasure of meeting some folks in New Mexico and talking about the Lakota Sioux. And I learned this particular chant, and I'm going to just start out with this. And I'm going to start by saying, Americana, truly, the folk roots start with the indigenous peoples, the Native Americans. The Native Americans, like many, many other peoples around the world, held things very close to them that many of us hold dear, like home, hearth, and family. And how did they pass along their traditions? They passed along their traditions through teaching, by showing, and they passed along their traditions by what we call the oral tradition, both O-R-A-L and A-U-R-A-L. So they orally told people, and they spoke into people's ears, and they passed along their stories. They passed along their stories through the spoken word and with the world's oldest instrument, the voice. And I learned this beautiful praise hymn from the Lakota Sioux. And it basically, I'm going to translate it to English. It's a praise for the glory of the Creator. So let's start there. And it goes like this. I praise you for your glory, the mountains and the streams. I praise you for your glory, the vision and the dreams. Oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. I praise you for your glory, the children and the dreams. I praise you for your glory, my vision and my dreams. Oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. And it goes on and on and on. You can spend the whole evening doing chants and trance chants and praise chants like that. And it's not different than other cultures where story songs became a very important part of what's been passed along to us, even up to this very day with pop music. And now we're going to go to the next example. Story songs. Remember that throughout this show. So story songs. So came the big immigration from the old world to the new. And along the Appalachian Mountains, from way down south in Georgia and further south all the way up to Maine, you had this beautiful Appalachian mountain culture. And there, it took the Swedes, the Germans, the Swiss, the Irish, the Scottish, and just about any other culture you can think of. But in the early days, especially, you know, the Germans, the Irish, the Scots, and so forth. And their music formed this kind of really interesting mountain music that was rooted in Celtic music, really the earliest roots of country music in America and folk music in this respect. And they too sang ballads about people, places, and things, home, hearth, and family. So I'm going to sing you an Irish ballad now, a Celtic ballad, if you will. It's one that I actually felt compelled to go to Ireland to sing by the wall in the town of Athenry. And there I was, singing by a wall. And that's just the way music can move you. And this is a story about a man who was trying to support his children and his wife. And he was on somebody's land. You know, usually there was the commoners, and then there were the lords and the gentry and stuff. And he was caught stealing some corn to feed his children. And for that crime, the crime of wanting to feed his family, he was shipped off to Botany Bay. Back in those days, if you went to Botany Bay, that was the end of the world, the complete other side, and you were never coming back. So this is that song, and this is a great example of a Celtic story song. My lonely prison hole, I heard a young girl calling. Michael, they have taken you away, for you stole your valiant sword, so the young might see the morn. Now a prison ship lies awaiting in the bay. that is right. Boy, once we watched the small free bird fly. Our love was on the wing. We had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely around the field of rapid ride. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling. Nothing matters, Mary, what you're afraid. It's the fountain and the crown. I rebel, it must be down. Now you must raise our child with dignity. Lord, that is right. Where once we watched the small river fly. Our love was on the way. We had dreams, songs to sing. We so only around the field of rapid ride. By a lonely harbor wall, she watched the last star falling. As the prison ship sailed out against the sky, for she lived, hoped and prayed for her love, Bonnie May. And it's so lonely in the field of rapid ride. Lord, the field of rapid ride, where once we watched the small free bird fly. Our love was on the wing. We had dreams and songs to sing. Now it's so lonely around the field of rapid ride. Now it's so lonely around the field of rapid ride. It's so lonely around the field of rapid ride. An Irish ballad, Fields of Athenry. The songs are lamentful, they're mournful, and they led to the early mournful and lamentful songs of country music. You know, there used to be a joke about country music. You think about a guy driving a truck, guy with his dog, or a guy that was down on his luck and lost his woman, and oh my, doom, death and despair. But when you don't have social media like you do today, and you have no other way to get through that lamenting, music plays a pretty good role there. And it's also a cautionary tale. You know, it's a tale that eventually can lead to things like fueling rebellion, which we'll get to later on. Because really, should you go to a prison halfway around the world for stealing a little bit of corn so that your children don't die of hunger? That's a question you can answer for yourself. So I want to tell you about some of these instruments too. Now, this is a Martin guitar. It's made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Comes from C.S. Martin, great German immigrant. He made fabulous guitars, and to this day, they are a very, very important part of the folk music scene around the world, not just here in the United States. So I'm going to show you some of these. This one doesn't have a name. Some of my instruments have a name, some don't. I'd like to also say that the Irish brought with us some great history of drinking songs. You know, I'm not going to play a whole drinking song now, but there are such tremendous songs that influenced American culture and American folk music. Like, you know, there's Whiskey in the Rye Whiskey, Gimme Whiskey. There's songs that evolved into Mountain Dew, you know, I'll call it that good old Mountain Dew, like Grandpa John from the Grand Ole Opry, and then that, the Low Enjoy it RP, whatever, Refuse it or Refuse. And then there's the Pot Sheen, which is another Irish Celtic word for hooch. Applejack in Berks County, very popular. The farmers in Berks County, in northern Berks especially, used to make applejack that was so good. Hank Williams Sr., in the old days of country music in family parks here in Berks County, which there were many, and would draw people by the thousands on weekends. And the stars of the Grand Ole Opry would come up after their Saturday night show down in Nashville to play in Berks County, Pennsylvania. Well, one of them was Hank Williams Sr., and it was quoted that Hank Williams said he loved coming up to Berks County because we made the best Applejack anywhere in the world, the best apple whiskey anywhere. So I'd like to play a little bit of one that's called Whiskey in the Jar. Just a little bit. As I was going over the Thornberry Mountains, I met Captain Farrell and his money was accounted. I first produced my pistol and then produced my rapier. He said, "Stand and deliver, for you are a bold deceiver, mushering the doom doom a da. Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar." Hey! You can imagine sitting around with your buddies, having a pint or a dram, counting all his money. It made a pretty penny. I put it in his pocket and I took it home to Jenny. She sighed and she swore that she would never deceive me. But the devil take that woman, for you know they can't be easy. For sure ain't gonna do a da. Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. So this is a cautionary tale too. Story song. Gentleman was robbed of all his gold and silver. There was another gentleman wanted to impress a lady. Oh, it's a tale as old as time. And then the lady, well, she deceived him. I went into my chamber for to take a slumber. I dreamt of gold and jewels, for sure it was no wonder. But Jenny drew in changes, she filled him up with water, then sent for Captain Farrell to be ready for the slaughter. Mushering the do-do-da. Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. Now this song has been done by rock and roll bands, folk musicians, just one of those great Irish drinking songs. 'Twas early in the morning, just before I rose to travel, up comes a band of footmen and likewise came Captain Farrell. I first produced my pistol, for she'd stolen away my rapier, but I couldn't shoot the water, so a prisoner I was taken. Mushering the do-do-da. Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. Oh! Now there's some like in carriages and others early bowing, but I take my delight in the juice of the barley. A courting pretty fair days in the morning, bright and early. I take my delight and I often take it early. What's the rate for you doing on? Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. Oh. Here's the plea for help. With any good lamenting song and cautionary tale needs a plea for help. If anyone can aid me, it's probably my brother in the army. I can find his station perhaps in Cork or Killarney. He'll go with me, we'll go roving in Kilkenny, and I'm sure he'll treat me better than my good old sporting Jenny. Mushering the do-do-da. Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. Mushering the do-do-da. Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. Whiskey in the jar. Oh, well, thank you. Okay, so moving along now, we are going to switch. So early on, as I said, the folk roots of Americana music, that which went on to make rock and roll, pop, jazz, everything else. We have the Appalachian Mountains and the Irish, Scots, Celtic traditions, story song. And then we have the African Americans who were unfortunately brought to this country as slaves, but fortunately for the world, they were here and are here because without them, there'd be no rock and roll and probably pop, and certainly not rhythm and blues like we know it today. I mean to tell you, the Mississippi bluesmen had it together. They influenced an entire generation of songsters and music goers and stuff. So let me give you an example. There were some early guys, like one of my favorite is Son House, and I'll get to him in just a minute. And also Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson's music was so powerful that the likes of Eric Clapton, when the English guys got a hold of this music, Eric Clapton, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and many others took this music and made it their own. John Bonham and Led Zeppelin, right? Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, all of these musicians we know as like, wow, these are the monsters of rock and roll. They wouldn't have been anything without the root music of the African Americans who brought their music with them. And so they brought with them spirituals. They brought with them songs that would help them keep rhythm in praise, because let's face it, for the majority of those people, it was a hellish life having to work on plantations or having to work in servitude. But one of them, the story goes, Robert Johnson, he was a mediocre guitar player. And he'd play around different places, and maybe, make a little bit of money here and there, but he wasn't going anywhere. And so to speed up the story, he basically disappeared for about a year. And when he came back, he was playing a whole, more fiery style and more passion in his music and writing songs about that would grab people and make them kind of even want to dance. Like in some would say, the devil's music. Jerry Lee Lewis once categorized it as that. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire we're going to be hit with because of what we're playing here. But anyway, Robert Johnson came back, and of course the legend is that Robert Johnson meant Lucifer. Mephistopheles, the devil at the crossroads. And he made a deal with the devil, and he sold the devil his soul so that he could become a better guitar player and songwriter and singer. And it wasn't shortly after that Robert Johnson became very, very famous, and then he died. He was poisoned, as far as history can tell, in a pub by a jealous man. That's never good. Don't get jealous of people upset. It's just not good, not good. So I'm going to play you a song now that you probably heard a group called Cream with Eric Clapton during the British invasion. When we were kids, most of us didn't realize these songs we were hearing were old black blues songs. We had no idea, most of us. We didn't know what the roots were. And we just went gaga over this music, like, oh, this is great, listen to that. That, is because they had the power of the electric guitar. I'm going to play you like this is more like the style that Robert Johnson might have played it. And actually, to do that, I'm going to get this guitar because I want to tell you about something else too. So this is a tri-tone resophonic guitar made out of metal. Not that pleasant to sound if you tap on it. Sounds like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. But there was no formal music education back then. There was just the oral tradition passed along through ear and by mouth. And there wasn't the classical studies of the European court and so forth. So the bluesmen would tune their guitars to what was pleasing to the ear. And a lot of times that was an open chord. So if I strum this guitar, for the music scholars out there, this is called a modal tuning. It's an open tuning. This is a G chord. So if you have your guitar tuned in the G chord, you're already making the G sound. And I was showing some people earlier. Let's take Louie Louie for an example of a song that everybody heard. You got the 1-4-5 structure of basically the early blues that turned into rock and roll, and it's never changed. You go. Okay, so the significance of that was by using just one finger, I was able to cover a fret and make a complete bar chord, a bar chord. So I made the 1 open, the 4, the next, and the 5. That's the roots of rock and roll. That's rock and roll, baby. That's it. But the Mississippi Delta blues players not only did the pass along tradition of the open tuning, they got these things. They got whiskey bottles, wine bottles, and this is one that I made. I know it's hard to see from this distance, but this is a traditional bottleneck slide. I have a little pad in there to keep it from slipping on my finger, but I literally took a bottle of wine, cut the top off, sanded it down, and you can buy these commercially, but it's so much more fun to make them like the old guys would do. You smash the bottle, sand it down on the concrete or a stone or whatever, and and they'd have this, the bottleneck slide. Let me do a little bit of fusion here. Old Robert Johnson song, Crossroads with the bottleneck slide. I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. Went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. I asked for mercy, please. I went down to the crossroads, tried to find the right. Went down to the crossroads, tried to find the right. Nobody seemed to know me. Everybody passed me by. Well, I'm going to Rosedale, take my rider by my side. I'm going to Rosedale, take my rider by my side. Still paradise, baby, on the riverside. Take my rider by my side. I'm going to Rosedale. Take my rider by my side. But you can still paradise, baby, on the riverside. Get a little rock and roll there. Tell my friend, old Willie Brown. You can come to the road, Bill. Tell my friend, old Willie Brown. I'm standing at the crossroads, and I believe I'm sticking down. So that would be an example of old style Mississippi Delta blues on an open G chord and a bottleneck slide. And the next thing we're going to do is give you another example of this. I'm going to play an old song that was covered by B.B. King and originally written by another gentleman, but you know, plagiarism is basic to all cultures. So I'd like to pull up for this one. Another one of these old guitars. This is sort of almost like a Django Reinhardt style jazz guitar. It's an F hole. See the two F holes? Very classical looking type instrument. It's a hollow body acoustic guitar, but it is the kind of thing we're seeing pictured with Robert Johnson and a lot of the old blues players. Now, B.B. King's version of this song is a little bit different, got a little different swing to it, but it's still the same rock and roll roots. So I'm going to do, this one is called Rock Me, Baby. Rock me, baby, rock me all night long. Rock me, baby, rock me all night long. I want you to rock me, baby, like my back ain't got no bone. Roll me, baby, like Well, mama, you don't know how you make me feel. Rock me, baby, rock me slow. Rock me, baby, till I can't rock no more. Rock me, baby, rock me all night long. Well, you wanna rock me, baby, till I can't well rock no more. So the power of the early blues players was taken along through our folk music, and we're going to get to where that ended up in just a little bit. But there's one more example of great folk music that is powerful and comes from the African American culture that found its way into doo-wop music, 50s music, what we call oldies now, all that kind of stuff. And it's a gospel song, a spiritual song. So in the Appalachian Mountains, gospel songs were very, very important. I started out with Native American culture and what was very important, singing to the Creator, giving thanks for family and the things in nature. So this is a thread that runs through all humanity. And it's also a thread that runs through the expression of humanity through folk music and the traditions and the values that it upholds. So this one is all about, if you've ever felt bad, like you've ever been oppressed, you've ever felt like a person that somebody's talking about behind your back, or they're making fun of you, or you're being bullied. This was written by Son House, and this is 60, 70 years ago. So don't ever think that, bullying is something new. There's been prejudice and craziness like that throughout humanity. It's just an unfortunate flaw in the genome of we humans. We tend to have this tendency, and you have to be bigger and overcome that. So this is an expression of Son House's where he's just basically saying, just ignore all that crap. Well, Taylor Swift would say, shake it off. Shake it off. I shake it off. This is 70 years before Shake It Off. Son House was doing it this way with just the voice. Don't you mind people grinning in your face? Don't mind people grinning in your face. Lord, you just bear what is in mind. But you bread is hard to find. Don't you mind people grinning in your face? Your mother would talk to you. Your own sisters and your brothers too. They just don't care how you're trying to live. They're gonna talk back to you still. Yes, but bear this in mind. The friend hard to find. Don't you mind people grinning in your face? Don't you mind people grinning in your face, oh Lord? Don't you mind people grinning in your face? Oh, you just bear what is in mind. But you bread is hard to find. Just don't mind people grinning in your face. They'll jump you up and down. They'll carry you all round and round. And just as soon as your back is going, they'll be trying to crush you down. Yes, but there is in mind. A good friend, hard to find. Don't mind the people breathing in your face. Sing it one more time, Lord. Don't mind people grinning in your face. Don't mind people grinning in your face. Yeah, Lord, you just bear what is in mind. But your friend is hard to find. Don't mind people grinning Good Words by Son House. Now, we're going to go into that interesting time in American history where the African-American blues were filtering up and to the north, and the Appalachian Mountain Celtic Irish music was filtering up and to the west and the north. And there started being all these records, and there started being this crazy thing called hillbilly bands. Everybody wanted to be a hillbilly at one time. Berks County had some famous hillbilly bands. There's all these old great pictures of hillbillies. Always had a clown. They had a banjo player. They had a guitar picker. They had a comic. Crazy Elmer. That's a Berks County's comic extraordinaire. Crazy Elmer's had like a 75-year career here. Shorty Long is another one of Berks County's own that he got to meet Elvis and perform on Broadway. You know, he had classically trained and all this kind of stuff. Being in a hillbilly band didn't mean anything about your musicality or your musicianship. It meant that you were smart enough to understand that, as with all eras of music, hillbilly or folk music or mountain people, that music became very popular. People liked it. They wanted to stomp their feet. They wanted to dance. They wanted to blow off steam. Lord knows. Is that not like what COVID's like for us? Do you not want to blow off steam? And could you do some stomping and some yelling, a little bit of yeehaw to get all that out of your system? So along comes a guy by the name of Bill Monroe. Bill Monroe took some of the early blue yodel songs of the singing breakman Jimmy Rogers, also very famous in American folk music. And Bill Monroe created this thing. Eventually, in time, it evolved into something called bluegrass music. And to this day, bluegrass music is still going strong around the world. In fact, I've made a really good career out of playing bluegrass music for the last 30, 40 years. And it's good people that enjoy it, and it's fun. But let me play you like a typical kind of bluegrassy sounding song. And this is about a mule skinner. Now, how many of you know what a mule skinner is? We certainly had them here in Berks County. We had them along the canals. The mules would, tow the barges up the canals, and they had to have a person driving the mule. They had to have an attendant to the mule. Mule skinner is what they called. So this was called Mule Skinner Blues. Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Captain. Do you need a new skinner? Make your new motor run high. You'll Skinner. Now I can make you listen. Won't accept your name. You lay. That way, you little water boy, won't you bring that water around that town? If you don't like it, John, you don't go to town. You let it Yo, Mule Skinner Blues. Like Jimmy Rogers, Blue Yodels. Thank you very much. If you're out there, I hope you're enjoying this. Dave Kline, and we're exploring some of the roots of folk music, and I'm looking over here. Oh boy, I have a good one for you now. Now we're going to combine the African American open style bottleneck slide blues, like, oh me, oh my, life is rough. It's COVID. I lost my job. I can't go anywhere. I'm sorry. That's talk about 2021 here. And the basic was that I lost my job. I can't afford to go anywhere or do anything. I'm a man of constant sorrow. And so a group out of the mountains of Virginia made this song. It was popularized way back when. It sold thousands of records back then. At the Stanley Brothers. And I enjoyed working with Rob Stanley and Bill Monroe. And this song became really popular through a movie by the Kline brothers, who were closely to our time, called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And this is the Soggy Bottom Boys played this. And it became like crazy, just like in the movie. Everybody had to hear this song. So let us do now the blues song that's also bluegrass, Mississippi Delta blues, with a little bit of Celtic lamenting thrown in there. You're following along with the storyline here of the show. And this is called "I'm a Man of Constant Sorrow." Oh, yeah, man of constant sorrow. I see troubles all my day. Oh, make that well to open the place where I was born and raised. Now, what do you say? Place where he was born and raised. Repeat the last line. It's everywhere to my old summer. Never expect to see you again. Oh, I am bound right that golden river. Perhaps I'll die upon this train. Sing it. Perhaps he'll die upon this train. Oh, 6 long years I've been in trouble. No pleasure's here over I found. Oh, in this world I'm bound to tremble. I have no friend to help me now. Sing it. He has no friend to help me now. Well, you can bury me in some valley for many years where I'm living. Then you may learn to love another while I'm sleeping in my grave. Sing it. While he's sleeping in his bed. Now maybe your friends think that I'm a stranger. My face you'll never see no more. But there is one promise that is given. I'll meet you on God's golden shore. Say, I'll meet you on God's golden shore. Oh my gosh, I better hurry up and get through the history. I could do this for hours. Okay, so moving right ahead. So we got 15 minutes, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to skip over some of the other stuff. And I'm going to get to cowboy music. Very strange in American folk and roots music is television, well, movies, motion pictures, invented this thing, the singing cowboy. This is strictly American. It used all of the influences, all of the mountain influences, the Delta influences, the country influences, and it even used influences from Switzerland and Austria and Germany and stuff. And you'll hear why in just a little bit. And you heard a little hint of it during the Bill Monroe song, Mule Skinner Blues. But we had these big stars, Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. These men made millions and millions of dollars. Were they really cowboys? No, they weren't really cowboys. Did cowboys really go out on the open range and dressed up all in beautiful rhinestone suits and have chrome-plated six-shooters and white hats and all that stuff? No, they didn't do that. Did they sit around the campfire at night singing and smelling sweet and having steak chili and all that kind of stuff? Well, maybe they had steak chili, but they probably didn't smell that sweet. And they might have sang songs, but they weren't sitting around singing like, like barbershop quartets. So the highly romanticized Wild Wild West and rise of cowboy music conveniently overlooked completely stepping on indigenous Native American culture. But that's another story for another time. The happy news is, thank God for Gene Autry and Roy Rogers of singing cowboys, because Gene Autry gave us great songs like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. He probably made more money doing the Christmas songs, cowboy style, than all the other music combined. But I'd like to give you an example now of cowboy music. The idealized cowboy that people see in America is the person who's just free to be on the open range, can do anything they want. Freedom and independence. You know what? That's not such a bad thing. This one's called Sing a Song to the Sky. Everybody now, you're a cowboy or a cowgirl, buckaroo or buckarette. Ready? Singing a song to the sky, there go I, riding high. Who could be freer than I, as I ride singing my song to the sky. On that wide-ribbed cabin I'm trailing, and I'm watching the green clouds go sailing. Who could be freer than I, as I ride singing my song to the sky. Here we go, join in. Hey, yo, yeah, hey, I'm singing the song to the sky, riding high, there no I. Who could be freer than I, as I ride singing my song to the sky. On that red ribbon canyon I'm trailing, and I'm watching those green clouds for sailing. Who could be freer than I, as I ride singing my song to the sky. Everybody! Hey, good, 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 yeah. Hey, buckaroos and buckarettes, that's a little cowboy music, purely Americana. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move right on now. We're rapidly going along here. I want to keep right on track. So, with all those cowboy influences, early country influences, African-American blues influences, and the mountain music and hillbilly music and all that stuff, there came this studio in Memphis, Tennessee, and the studio was called Sun Records, excuse me, and the producer was Sam Phillips. And Sam Phillips had in his studio a lot of fine recordings of the African-American spiritual gospel numbers and sort of early rhythm and blues sound, maybe even some early jazz. But he also had Johnny Cash in there, who came to him singing gospel numbers. And he had thumbs up for Johnny Cash, big deal. And he also had Elvis Presley in there. He also had Jerry Lee Lewis. He had Carl Perkins, to name but a few. And Johnny Cash came up with his unique sound there, and it sounded a little bit like this. Love fell into a ring of fire. Sing it if you know it. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher. And it burned, burned, burned. That ring of fire. That ring of fire. The taste of love is sweet. When hearts like ours meet, I went for you like a child. But oh, the fire was wild. Let's sing it together. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher. And it burned, burned, burned. That ring of fire, that ring of fire. And it burned, burned, burned. That ring of fire, that ring of fire. And it burned, burned, burned. That ring of fire, that ring of fire. Johnny Cash also got involved with the Carter family, A.P. Carter and Ma Bell Carter, and they had famous songs like Will the Circle Go? I like a lamenting song, Be Unbroken. By and by, oh, by and by. There's a better way in the sky, Lord, in the sky. It doesn't get more mournful than this. Let's go back to the Irish ballads or the Mississippi Delta blues and think of the subject matter. Needing to sing to make yourself feel better and others around you. I said to thee, listen to these lyrics. Undertaker, Undertaker, please drive slow. For that body you are holding, Lord, I hate to see it go. Will the circle say it? Be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by. There's a better way in the sky, Lord, in the sky. In the sky, Lord, in the sky. An example of how country music and Delta blues and Irish mournful tales that were passed along all blended together. Now, at that same time also, to give you two quick examples, aside from Johnny Cash, was Carl Perkins. Carl Perkins had a big hit song with this one that Ringo Starr still plays in his concerts. I'll play a little bit of this because we're running out of time. I want to give you some musical examples. Maybe wet your whistle for another show we could do sometime, okay? This was a big hit, and this is what really took all those early influences and kind of launched it into rock and roll, or what was then called rockabilly music. Hillbilly and blues evolved into rockabilly. Sit here with a matchbox hold my clothes. I'm sitting here with a matchbox to hold my clothes. I ain't got no matches, I'll show got a long way to go. I'm an old boy, and a long, long way from home. I'm an old boy, and I'm a long, long way from home. I never had a house, never had a gold mine. So you hear that? You can hear the kind of the Elvis influence in it. You know, these guys didn't make this stuff that was derivative as the music went on through the decades. And one more guy I got acknowledged from the Sun music era that really just put it on the overdrive. I mean, Elvis had a great career, but this guy, you shake my nerve, then you rattle my brain. Too much love makes a man insane. You broke my will, but what a thrill. This great balls of fire. I'm in love with my soul with money. Take my love and woo, say honey. I change my mind. This love is fine. This gracious great balls of fire. It's the baby. Ooh, I'm going to take you into the folk rock scene because in the 60s, primarily due to civil rights unrest and the horrible treatment of African Americans and other minorities and women by what was specified the white establishment. Let's face the facts. That is part of the American history. Hopefully, we keep working to change that. You know, we're living through that in modern times as well. But there were social consciousness raised because of the Vietnam War as well. I mean, good Lord, the Vietnam War, holy smoke, that's a whole other topic. But I will tell you that guys like Woody Guthrie, coming out of the earlier times, was writing songs for the people. Pete Seeger began to write songs for the people. Then you had people like Joan Baez and Bob Dylan, and they used this instrument, or as Woody Guthrie called it, this machine. Check this out. This is what it said on the back of Woody Guthrie's guitar. Can you read that? It says, "This machine kills fascism." And he meant it. He meant that if you could play and sing a song, and you could do poetry or storytelling from the heart, you could move the masses through the media. Think about that. Woody Guthrie did that. Woody Guthrie. And then his friend Pete Seeger had another similar saying. Pete Seeger put this on the back of his banjo. It says, "This machine surrounds hate and forces it to surrender." This machine surrounds hate and forces it to surrender. These were poet laureates of their day. And Woody wrote a lot of songs like "This land is your land, this land is your land, this land is my land." That was written in our time, from California to New York. Woody wrote that. But he also wrote another one. This is really strange. Woody kind of went established because he got a good deed from the government, and they wanted to build this huge dam on the Columbia River out there in Washington State, in Oregon. And they wanted the average man, which Woody was a champion of, to think that was a great idea, and let's build this dam. And so he wrote this song, "Roll On, Columbia, Roll On." It's a great song to sing along to, and let's do it now. Roll on, Columbia, roll on. Roll on, Columbia, roll on. Your power is turning our darkness to dawn. So roll on, Columbia, roll on. Green Douglas firs where the word cuts through. Down her wild mountains and canyons she flew. Canadian northwest of the ocean so blue. So roll on, Columbia, roll on. Other great rivers that power to you. Yakima, Snake, and the Kankakee, Sandy, Willamette, and the Hood River too. So roll on, Columbia, roll on. Sing one more. Roll on, Columbia, roll on. Roll on, Columbia, roll on. Your power is turning our darkness to dawn. So roll on, Columbia, roll on. I'm going to move to a Pete Seeger song real quick. This is a preview. Pete Seeger had that wonderful message. Pete Seeger always used a beautiful long neck banjo. It's like a troubadour's banjo. And Pete Seeger wrote this song originally for the labor movement. And it turned out to be one of the most important songs of the emancipation movement. It turned out to be an important song for the suffragette, for the cause of women too, later on, cause of women. And you might remember Dr. Martin Luther King marching down the street with people in their thousands. And, it was all about peace. It wasn't about violence. And that's because the message that was being put out by folk troubadours, by Pete Seeger and many others, was like this. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. that we shall overcome someday. One more verse. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I believe we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I believe we shall overcome someday. Shortly after that, Bob Dylan wrote, "Oh, the times they are a-changing." That's where I'm going to leave you right now, and hopefully someday we get to carry on this program. I'd like to thank the Berks History Center, and I'd like to thank Vicki and Ben and everybody here, and I'd like to thank you for being with me during this hour. I hope you got something out of it, and it was my pleasure to be here with you on the third Thursday of the month presentation. And it's the very first one. It's the inaugural one. So it's my honor to be at the inaugural event of this kind. So to all of you out here who love history, keep on supporting the Berks History Center. My name's Dave Kline. See you down the road somewhere.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I hope you had a pleasant evening, and will join us again for our upcoming program. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you, Vicki. And I wish everyone a good night, good health, and good safety.